Rated E for everyone. Includes in-game purchases. Includes random items. EA Sports FC 26 is here. Play your way this holiday season with an overhauled gameplay experience powered by community feedback. Enjoy festive upgrades in Ultimate Team with winter wildcards. Take on holiday-themed challenges and manage your career, like navigating the busy Christmas period. And team up with friends and clubs with new tournaments and live events. The club is yours. Give the gift of football with EA Sports FC 26.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Looking for ways to keep the kids entertained while traveling? Netflix Games lets them jump into fun, creative adventures at no extra cost. Everything's unlocked with your Netflix membership. From Paw Patrol Academy and Lego Duplo World to Barbie color creations and World of Peppa Pig, there's something for every little explorer. And you don't need Wi-Fi. Kids can play anytime, anywhere. Visit netflixfamily.com/travel tips for all your kids' holiday entertainment.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding Stand. Let's hit the notes. Okay, final whistle, and it was Chelsea 1, Aston Villa 2. I'm with Joe in person here in the Dixon's bar in the Matthew Harding Stand. Fair to say that we are both pretty pissed off after that second half display. Things that jump to mind are, well, I'll give you three and I'll hand over to Joe. Number one, so comfortable for the best part of an hour of that game. We said at half time and they hadn't laid a glove on us. It was so comfortable, but you had that feeling that if we didn't get a second goal, it was going to cost us. We didn't get it. It was a mixture of bad decision making, maybe a lot of lack of courage in front of goal, and just not making it count. They bring on Watkins, you're like, oh, okay. That was point one. Point two, why bring Cole Palmer off? You saw his reaction in the ground. He was putting his arms up. It was 1-1 at that point. The game was there to be won. It felt like it took the air out of the ground and air out of certainly out of the fans. What should have been a big positive moment with Esteval coming on, I thought, to play with Palmer, took the energy out of the ground, and we really never got a meaningful attack or a meaningful sort of foot on the ball after that. And then my third point would be, and this is maybe a bigger point, a bigger conversation, how much of this, right? We are not improved from a season ago. We're not improved now from a year ago. You look at the league table, it tells you that. You look at what you see in front of your eyes, it tells you that. How much of that do you lay blame on Enzo Maresca? And how much do you lay the blame on the sporting directors and the transfer business? And I say that because clearly I'm frustrated with Maresca. I think a lot of us are. But I look at the players we brought on in Jamie Gittins, and sorry to pick on him as well. But I look at him and go, is he better than Jadon Sancho or Madueke? Certainly not at the moment. And there aren't signs that he's going to be better than them. And that isn't Maresca, that's the sporting directors. And you could point at a few other players in that squad and say the same. But yeah, as you can hear in my voice, pissed off, frustrated. Joe, I'll hand over to you. We're sat here together. It feels pretty grim, doesn't it, after Christmas, that one?
Yes, I think I'm going to start with probably the substitutions. They made 3 substitutions after about 63 minutes, 60 minutes, and Chelsea made theirs about 5 or so minutes later, and they won the game and ours didn't. And sadly, it felt like we brought on the B team. And that is, I don't like using that expression, but I feel as though Chelsea were in complete control of the game until we gifted them a goal from yet again another defensive mistake from Badiashile. And again, I don't want to pick on him. Chris just said about Jamie Gittins, not picking on him, but it comes down to big moments in games. Chelsea were under no pressure. He's got the ball in the corner flag. He just smashes the ball blind into the centre of the park. They pick it up, drive through. Watkins, 1 shot, 1 goal. And we just looked at the stats. It felt like it in the ground, but Watkins has had 4 shots on target and he's been on the pitch 23 minutes. Liam Delap's touched the ball, I think, 4 times and none are in the box. And unfortunately, I'm finding it hard to defend. I don't really know where to go with it because for the first hour, like Chris mentioned, we were very, very much in control of that. I think we quite enjoyed what we saw, but we have a real lack of cutting edge. And we've said it more than once. We have no killer instinct at number 9. There's nobody there that you feel like is going to go and win you the game. And I feel a little bit in 2 minds because I really enjoyed what I saw for an hour. Well, I have to say, the moment that Cole Palmer and João Pedro went off, and Mark Cucurella, I mean, Cucurella had a brilliant game today. I get the reason why he went off because of purely being overplayed. But Malo Gusto didn't have a very good time at left back when he come on. Where's Hato? Okay, people might say that he's young and inexperienced, but at least he's a left back. Yeah, Villa just looked much more comfortable. Once they got their noses sort of level with us, you felt as though there's only going to be one winner. We didn't create anything after that. Jamie Gittins had a few lofted passes to the back posts that went out of play. Esteval had 1 or 2 little moments of trickery, but once again, flat-footed in the box and just didn't look like we're going to score. Yeah, very disappointing. I don't know where we go from here. Like, I've just seen Liverpool 3 points above us now. Man United are level on points. Sunderland can go ahead of us with a win tomorrow. Aston Villa are now 10 points clear of us. And Chelsea's record now is 2 wins in 8 games since Barcelona. One of those games was against Cardiff. It's Chelsea in December, but when is it going to end? When are we going to get past this point where we can actually put a serious run of games together? I don't think Chris or I want to win. Well, we want to win the league, of course, but I don't think we thought we could win the league. But I felt as though there might have been some kind of tangible improvement this year. But at the moment, we look like we're going backwards.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think we've improved. Well, we haven't improved. Let's not beat around the bush. We haven't improved from this time last year. Arguably, people have figured us out a bit. We're in the Champions League now. It's more difficult to manage the squad, but I don't think the squad's any better. I think that you look at, we've said it so many times, and Maresca has said it, and part of me actually doesn't want to lay the blame at Maresca's door today. Part of me wants to lay it on that squad, because you said it there, Joe. We brought on the B squad, and our B squad isn't good enough. We could have got Ollie Watkins in the summer. Fairly well publicised that Villa were happy for him to go. We didn't go for Watkins because we went for Delap, because it was a cheaper option, a bigger upside. Obviously, you're going to make a good profit on Delap, whatever happens. We went for him. We didn't go for Jadon Sancho. We looked at trying to keep him, but we went for, obviously, Gittins, and we sold Madueke. All of these micro decisions have left us worse as a football team, as a squad. You look at players like Tosin that we brought in, Badiashile and Gusto, and I've been praising Gusto at times this year, but when you feel them coming on the pitch, you just feel like, okay, we're going down a level here. We're going down a step. And I think we've not been pragmatic enough in the market to make smart signings that improve you as a team. Your Oliver Giroud's, the signings of days gone by, your Thiago Silva's, that just make you a better football team. We're not doing that. It feels like we're playing market trading, and you can be excited about that when it's Esteban Willian, when it's someone with that upside. Okay, I'll get back behind this. But when it's fundamentally not making you a better football team, it is very, very hard to get behind, and especially on a day like today when you play a Villa side. Joe and I were sat here after an hour going, hey, if they've won 10 in a row, I don't see it. We're like, I don't see it. They're not a good side. We're watching them, they haven't got a clue here, and we gifted them back into the game, Joe.
Yeah, I'll have to say, I think Aston Villa are one of the worst sides I've seen play football this season. And that's not any bitterness. I'm the first person to say to anybody, if when Palace played us this year in a 0-0 draw, Palace outplayed us, and I would honestly say, yeah, they were the better team. Villa were dreadful. They had an expecting XG of 0 at half-time, and that carried on until the 60th minute, until Watkins came on. The one thing they did do, though, was bring on Watkins, and they had a focal point, an actual number 9 that you knew is a killer in front of goal. And if you give him a chance, you give him a stiff, he will have a shot. The trouble with Chelsea strikers, and we've had it for a long, long time, it doesn't just fall on Liam Delap's shoulders, is that we don't take enough shots and we don't have enough digs at goal. But Pedro Neto had a shot with about 5 minutes to go. It's on the 90th minute, I think. It ticked over. And it got blocked outside the box. And I said to Chris, I went, oh, we've had a shot. You know, we get to the point where we pull the ball back and we constantly mess around out wide. It's like we have to have 14 touches when 2 will do. And I'm just going to say a couple of things just very quickly. Garnacho today for me, I thought I like Garnacho. So this isn't an anti-Garnacho take, but I felt as though he went backwards and inside a lot. He never took his man on once, which is really frustrating. That really annoyed me today. Liam Delap looks like a player that we've signed from Ipswich and decided to tell him to play the complete opposite of what he was used to. He was an all-action, he was action man of Ipswich. He was in the left channel, the right channel. He'd be in the box for headers. He would kind of get tap-ins, he'd get all sorts of goals. He's come to Chelsea and he looks like a fish out of water. So I don't know what's happened there. And just lastly, the feeling inside the ground, not at the final whistle, but I felt with about 15, 20 minutes to go, Chris mentioned that B team coming on, it went very flat. There was a moment where I think it was Caicedo, he looks up, he could have gone wide left to Jamie Gittins. He had 40, 50 yards of space to run into. He looked at him and went, no, and he passed it to Reece James who was wide. And that tells you everything you need to know. Reece James is a fullback by trade. Yes, he's got a great cross. Yes, he delivers a great ball. But you've just paid upwards of £60 million for Jamie Gittins. And he visibly looked at him and just refused the pass. And that shows you everything you need to know about Chelsea's players they signed in the summer at the moment. I thought we were getting a lot of upgraded players in some cases. You know, you trust the sport directors to do their job properly. But at the moment, I think we've fallen well short. And where Chelsea go from here in January, I'm not too sure. But it's a long uphill battle.
Final word from me then, I guess, is it's got to be on the manager, on Enzo. Enzo created a narrative in the last few weeks where he clearly wasn't happy. Joe and I walking down the stairs were saying, all doesn't seem right at the club. There's a feel about it. That high feel and brilliant mood that we had in the ground against Barcelona and Arsenal was certainly not there today with the fans. It didn't look like it was particularly there with the players. And yeah, it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens there from here. Chelsea need to react and need to respond. We'll be back to respond in the morning. I give another take on what we've just seen, but as you can hear in our voices, we're gutted. We're looking forward to today so much after Christmas. And yeah, that last half an hour has killed a little bit of faith of where the season can go, I think. I think that's the fair feel that I've got.
Right, before you hear more from Joe and I, let's hand over to a listener and friend of the show, Declan, for his take on what was a disappointing night for a certain Argentinian centre midfielder. Over to you, Declan.
So much, really, I think I could complain about from that game, but to probably echo a thought that I've had for a long time now, and one that keeps coming back, and I'm not quite sure how you deal with it. Enzo Fernandez, I just don't think is a Premier League top level number 8. Good play, handy passer, has a few clutch moments in him, but fundamentally the way the game's gone, you need hard running, up and down players, particularly in midfield. If you look at the teams that have won it in the past few years, you know, Liverpool didn't really have any superstars in midfield, right? But they had functional players. Gravenberch, McAllister, whoever else they're stuck in there, I can't even remember. Says it all, really. Enzo just hasn't got the legs. I think on the amount of times Villa broke in the second half and Enzo's sort of ambling back on the halfway line, he's always late to the 50-50s. Seems to get booked all the time for stupidity. And there's so much I could pick apart in that performance. But one thing I say time and time again, clip this, and I hope I am wrong, but I don't think you ever win a Premier League with Enzo as your main 8 in midfield, particularly when we rely so much on it, given that Moises is a sitter and kind of drops into the defence and all the rest of it. you're effectively playing with a 2-man pivot, and Enzo just hasn't got the legs to play as a Premier League pivot top player. My hot take for the day. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm seeing it week in, week out now where he just, the legs just aren't there. Good player, World Cup winner, well done, mate. But he just needs the athleticism, I think, in the Premier League, and just don't think he's got it. Other than that, well, everyone else was just great, weren't they?
Chris and I have chewed the fat over that ridiculous game we've just seen for at least a couple of hours after the game, and I think we still can't make head nor tail of it. I can tell I've left Chris. He's gone one direction, I've gone the other. I can tell he's definitely a man that's very, very disappointed tonight. I am equally so, don't get me wrong. But, I felt as though that one hurt Chris tonight a little bit more than it did me. I just feel as though maybe I've been seeing his performance coming. And maybe a little bit Chris was holding on to a little bit more hope this season in terms of what we can do in the league. I mean, there's still the FA Cup, there's still the Champions League, of course. You never know your luck. If you play your cards right, you might end up doing something really ridiculous. But I think as for our league form, and that's put us 10 points behind Aston Villa, as I may have said in the last voice note. But already it feels like a very uphill task. Like I say, we've now got another team ahead of us in Liverpool in the league table, which kind of adds another little element of trickery. But at this point in the season, 3 points isn't a lot. It's just a case of it's another thing to kind of throw into the mix. I don't think any of us thought that Liverpool were completely out of it, or Man United even. But you kind of go, they're not very good, and they haven't been very good all season long, and we should be quite comfortably clear of these teams. And I think Chris said a few weeks ago on the podcast, we want to be where Villa are. And I think that's the honest truth. If we were like sitting here now, 10 or 7 points clear of the rest in third position, or I think it might be second position, I haven't looked at the table, but you'd be like, that's where we want to be. Unfortunately, we've kind of let ourselves go, let ourselves drift away a little bit, and suddenly now we are at the point where you go, what are we going to do? What can we achieve? I think there's so much to go. There's so much football to be played. You cannot make any kind of projections at this point as where you're going to finish. I think right here, right now, you're sitting disappointed, gutted. You feel like it's a bit doom and gloom. Things can change very, very quickly, and we've seen this change under Maresca many, many times before. All I would say is that when Maresca's had sticky patches in the past, you've always felt like we could maybe get ourselves out of it, and the expectation levels wasn't quite as high as they now are. Now he's gone and won the Conference League and won the Club World Cup, and they've kind of added to their squad, which is supposedly supposed to be better, which that is well up for debate right now. It makes you think, we should be doing a lot better than we are, and currently we're not, which is really, really disappointing. And I think you felt that in the crowd today. Chris and I were literally sitting in the pub beforehand, and he said to me, I feel like this is a game we should win today. I feel like it's not a comfortable win by any means, but I feel like it's a game we should go and, do the business in. And I said, I think that too. But equally, I can also see us being on the other end of a bad result, whether that be a draw or a defeat. And we're going to go, how the hell did that happen? But it played out exactly that way. And Villa came to Chelsea. They were grossly bad in that first half. They had an XG of 0.0000. I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my life. And we were sitting there going, we feel like Chelsea should be ahead. We feel like we should be winning. And at 0-0, you're still going, okay, let's see how this goes. We don't quite know how it's going to happen. But then suddenly that Reece James cross comes in, and we get the goal. It come off João Pedro's, I think, shin or back of his calf or something. We were the other end, so it's hard to determine what it came off of, but it got given to Pedro, I think, in the end. And you're thinking it's more than Chelsea deserved, and they were far the better side. And they had missed, not, I would say, really gilt-edged, sick chances missed, but they were certainly chances you would expect someone of Chelsea's calibre of player to take, but we didn't do that. And when you do that, you leave the position open to a comeback. And Villa didn't do an awful lot in the first half. And I said to Chris, sitting there, I said, well, for the first 10 or 15 minutes, we actually looked the better team. We haven't dropped off. We've kept pace up. We've kept our spirits up. We're pressing everything. And they made those 3 substitutions, and before you know it, it was like, not game over, but it was like, oh, wow, this has really changed now. Even though Villa didn't do anything brilliant, a crap ball from Badia Shield picked up in the midfield and started through from, I think it was Tillemans to Ollie Watkins, who gets a shot and then a knee, and it goes in off of, a collision between Chalobah, Sanchez and Watkins, and it comes off Watkins' knee and goes in. You kind of go, is it going to be one of those days? And then for a moment, we kind of got back into the game slightly, but nothing made you feel like we had that same presence of the first half. And when that cross came in from the corner, I said goal before it even hit Watkins on the head. He was so unmarked, it was embarrassing. And, you've got Liam Delap marking absolutely nobody not even at the back post. He's sort of marking the corner of the 6-yard box. There's nobody in the post. And Gusto, who is probably half the height of Delap, is marking Watkins. Now, make that make sense. Now, is that done by design, or is that just a real lapse in concentration? Because we've been sort of saying all the way through the game, Chelsea had left 3 forwards up. João Pedro Neto, and Garnacho for corners. We left them all up, a bit like we did against Arsenal. We let Sanchez come and claim the ball, and we had 2 fantastic counter-attacks, which we made a real hash of the last pass. But you're kind of going, we've learned from this. And the moment the substitutions happened with Delap, Gittins and Esteval, I don't know if it's by design, again, or if it was just a complete error, but Delap was dropping back into marking. And in actual fact, he marks nobody, and we ended up conceding a really terrible goal from a corner, which is, he just basically walks in and nods it in. There's no pressure on the ball. He's got 5 yards of space, and it's a real disappointing goal. And then at that point, you just went, I don't see us getting back into this. Jeremy Gittins has been as good as like a wet dishcloth. You got Delap, who's this great big blundering centre forward. He's been playing so well for Ipswich in this kind of all-action hero role. Suddenly he looks like a baked potato up front, just kind of stodgy and fat and doesn't touch the ball, and it's really, really hard to reach. Esteval is pushed out to the right-hand side, and even though he does his best to get into the game, he's not getting enough football for one. He's been a little bit injured, I think. But when he came on today, it's his first appearance for a little while, and yeah, he did well in what he could do. He didn't have a lot of the ball, and when he got it, he did okay. And obviously, Jeremy Gittins on the other side was completely useless. And I've heard the voice note from Declan regarding Enzo Fernandez, and Chris and I think probably can't really disagree with what he said there. I think Enzo Fernandez was pretty poor today. He didn't have a lot to do. He didn't contribute enough. You look in your midfield and you're kind of going, Caicedo's doing this, or Reece James is doing that. They're all involved, but he's the one that's not really getting in amongst everybody. He picks up too many yellow cards for dissent and there were some really poor fouls today that the referee picked up. I say poor fouls, they weren't fouls at all, and the referees were giving needless calls on certain players, and you're thinking, why is that a yellow card? It's not even a foul, he's given a yellow card for it. And it can be frustrating as a football player, but you kind of know this week in, week out, and you can't keep opening your mouth because you're going to get suspended. And I think that there's just too many players within this team where you feel like Chelsea have shops. We feel like we're shopping at Waitrose or Marks and Spencer's, yet to find that actually your mum secretly went to Asda and Morrison's to buy their centre halves and to buy their centre forwards. It's quite depressing. I won't lie. It's quite a depressing state of mind. I don't want to come on the podcast and be depressing. I think I've been quite upbeat considering the defeat today, but it's a real shame that we can't seem to improve upon what has been quite a positive time for the club since we won the Club World Cup. It's been fairly positive, and I think the fans have sort of bought into Maresca, but those boos at the final whistle today were really worrying. And I've heard his interview via a friend of ours, Owen Phillips, who went to the game today, and he sent us the video of that, of his interview today after the game, and he says nothing but all the generic, boring crap that you'd expect from a manager, and there's no kind of passion, no real fight. It's all quite depressing and move on to the next game type of thing. And I know there is an element of that with a manager. You can't change the result that's just happened. You need to kind of get on and move with the next game. But my goodness me, if he was to get a draw or a defeat at home to Bournemouth and then go to Man City away and not win there, I mean, that's one win in I think 10 in the league. That's embarrassing for a club of our size and a club of our stature, that's literally shocking. And Chelsea really, really need to sort this out. I mean, this December, January slump that we seem to have every single year is becoming boring. I'm sick and tired of getting to the end of November and thinking we're doing quite well, and suddenly it's like the same old rubbish week in, week out after a really good start generally to most seasons. And yeah, we're in a bit of a pickle at the moment. There's no real getting away from it. I don't know how well the results are going to fall for us. We might beat Bournemouth, we might beat Man City, and it might be okay. But I just think the way we're playing, we're not going to get there. I hope I'm wrong, but I think at the moment the way I'm feeling, it's a little bit disappointing, a little bit sad, and yeah, I don't know if Enzo Maresca is a person that really wants to fight for his job. If Chelsea were to lose the next couple of games, what does that do? Will the media up their ante on him? Will he then come out fighting? Will there be a few, prickly questions which he doesn't like, and he then answers them in a poor way? The club are watching everything he does, and I think at the moment we just see them here. We're sort of slowly climbing it's like a toffee wall. It's all stodgy and sticky. There's no real slickness to our play. It feels a little bit predictable and, quite frankly, just a little bit sad. You do wonder with a manager like Unai Emery or someone of that caliber that's won things consistently over the years with Villarreal and what have you, would he be doing a better job of this team? I don't really know exactly, but no one really knows, to tell you the truth, because you haven't got a magic wand. But you just wonder if Maresca, has he got the guts for it? Has he got the desire to stick this out and actually come out fighting? Because the same crap answers that he's giving in press conferences at the moment are really, really poor, and he's going to need to show a lot more than this in the upcoming games, because Iraola won't show no respect, nor Pep Guardiola. So yeah, difficult time for Chelsea at the moment, and hopefully there's some kind of light at the tunnel if we can pick up 3 points against Bournemouth next week.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
What's going on? I'm Arch Manning, Viore athlete and college quarterback. Whether I'm running, training, traveling, or just unwinding at home, I love doing it in my core shorts from Viore. With a breathable boxer brief liner, they're quick to dry, super versatile, and stand up to even my most intense training sessions. Plus, they come in 3 inseams and a ton of colors. Ready to try a pair? Go to viore.com/arch and get 20% off at checkout. I think you're going to love them as much as I do. That's VUORI.com/ARCH and get 20% off your first order. Exclusions apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Have a great day.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Komm du Norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify, spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Okay, it's the morning after the night before that was Villa, and I won't lie, I am still really, really feeling just gutted and disappointed, I think, is the words that come to mind. Woke up in the middle of the night for a wee, and I was thinking about Chelsea. First thing I thought about was the disappointment that I was feeling, and just not great. I'm going to split my note, I think, into 2. So a little bit about the game last night and maybe some of the patterns that we're seeing this season, and then a bit of a discussion about whether it's Maresca or the club, which I kind of alluded to straight after the game and the bar. Let's start with the game then. I think the first thing I'll say is the team selection, and we don't know why Wesley Fofana didn't didn't start. He was obviously on the bench, so we assume he wasn't injured. You see Bediashile starting in the lineup, and when the team came out, it was the first thing that Joe and I said was, why has he done that? It's Aston Villa. They've won 10 in a row. The only time really we've looked solid this season defensively has been when it's been Fofana and Chalobah together. They didn't have the best game, certainly in the first half up at Newcastle, as we know, but generally as a pairing, they've been very good. Why change it? Why are we rotating centre-backs? Again, we've said it before, you don't see Arsenal do it. You didn't see great Chelsea teams or any great teams of the past do it. You didn't go, Man United with Vidic and Ferdinand would rotate it with a third. It just isn't a thing that's done. Chelsea are doing it. We know that the reasons maybe with Wes Fofana's sort of injury record, but it's been a week since we played. I think as soon as I saw that, I just thought, I wonder if we're going to end up talking about that in the pod. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, Bediashile is the guy who makes a terrible mistake for the first goal. I watched it again, and it was just a ridiculous pass into no one. And in that position, if you've just got a bit of sense about you and there isn't a ball on, just chuck it down the line, 60 yards down the line, push the pitch up, and then just play. It was crazy, and it turned the game. And unfortunately, it's a constant theme. It's this constant rotation that we don't really understand as fans, and it just always seems to catch us out. And Joe said about bringing the B squad on. We've talked about it again a little bit on the pod. The drop off between what is, your best sort of 14, 15 players to the ones below them is massive. And again, if that was Josh Achimpong alongside Chalobah, I think we'd all feel quite differently about it. Josh is going to make mistakes at times, but he's been pretty good. And if he was to make a mistake, you think, well, at least we know he's going to learn from it, and you're investing in a young player with a huge upside. When it's Bediashile, it's much more difficult to forgive it. And Achimpong is being linked in the last couple of weeks to Man City, to Bayern Munich, to others, and Chelsea have got to be really careful with him, because I think Joe said it. I mean, we were talking about after the game. If he was to go to any one of those teams, you can guarantee he'd be starting every week. He'd be a regular player for them. And somehow Chelsea just are not giving him that time on the pitch, and it's really frustrating. The other thing about the game was just how it felt all too inevitable for me watching it. The longer it went, 1-0, and we were missing chances, and you just had this feeling that Chelsea don't do 1-0s. It's just something we've not done much of at all this season. And it feels like teams have worked us out a bit, that if you just stay in the game, Chelsea are going to give you a chance. We're equal with the most points dropped from winning positions this season with 13. You look at Brighton at home, 1-0 up at half-time, Sunderland at home, 1-0 up, Villa at home, 1-0 up at half-time. At home, we've lost all three of those games, and they've all followed that horrible familiar pattern that as soon as the equaliser goes in, it feels like our heads go and we look a completely different team. And is that on Maresca for a lack of changes? Is it on the players for a lack of leadership and character? I think the reality is probably a little bit of both. I think specific to the game last night, Maresca's lack of response when Villa went three in midfield was poor, frankly. They went three in midfield. We didn't seem to have a response to it. We put Estevao on as number 10. He's done none of his best work for Chelsea as number 10 yet. He's done all of his best work on the right. I thought putting him on for Palmer just felt weird, especially when you've got Andre Santos sat on the bench, who would have then given you another physical out, go like for like in the midfield three if you need to, and get Estevao on for one of the wingers. I just thought it was, when Gittins is coming on over Estevao, you just got to think, why? Really, why? And you lost, I think I mentioned it, but you lost all of that kind of potential of a real positive from the crowd when you take Palmer off. And having Estevao and Palmer together, we're still not seeing it, and it is just very frustrating. And I mentioned that the lack of control from 1-0 up, the lack of seeming to know how to close out games. We did it in the Champions League as well. I've done it against Karabag and Atalanta away from home. Both of those games, we're ahead in the game. And as soon as it's gone bad, it goes very bad very quickly. And it's, inevitable, I think, is the word that I'm going to use for the pod this week, because unfortunately it does seem to be a pattern and a theme that you can't ignore. And when you hear Maresca talk after the game, like Joe said, you're getting nothing from him that's making you feel like that they have an idea. And he's not going to tell us everything, of course he's not, but it doesn't feel like there is particularly a plan to improve this. We're 9 points worse off than we were this time last season, I believe. I think that's the number. It's that lack of improvement that I keep thinking about this morning, and it's just so frustrating. And yeah, it's hard at the moment to be excited about Chelsea, and it feels like we're a long way from where we were a month or so ago. And yeah, I'm sorry to be a bit of a downer on the pod, but I've got to share how I feel. Let's move on to where the fault lies, or where we go from here, I guess. I'm gonna split in two. I'm gonna talk about the sporting directors, and then I'm gonna talk about Maresca. So on the sporting directors side, let's look back at what we did in the summer window, and I'm gonna put it out there that it's a good point now, halfway through the season, to review that business and whether or not we have actually maybe gone backwards or improved. Now, the argument will be that quite a few of these players could well end up being very good Chelsea players, and the business will look very different in a couple of years. That's absolutely fine. But what is very clear is that we haven't, in my mind, improved what we needed for this season. And again, this sort of constant feel that we're always planning for 2 years down the line as a fan is very frustrating. Particularly after having finishing the Champions League positions, won the Club World Cup, you thought, okay, maybe we're going to put our foot on the gas now and have a real go. And unfortunately, at the moment, it doesn't feel like we've done that. Let's have a look then. So João Pedro came in from Brighton, 23, 63 million. And I think you can sort of say he was in to replace Nkunku. I'm going to say, yes, he has improved on Nkunku. He still frustrates us. He's still probably not a natural number 9. He's not getting enough shots away, all those kind of things. But I think as a like for like, I'd say, yeah, João Pedro over Nkunku, an improvement. Nkunku, by the way, is not done much at AC Milan either. He is struggling. I think those injuries have really killed him, sadly. Liam Delap versus Nicholas Jackson is, for me, an undoubted downgrade at this point. Love him or hate him, Jackson was a constant threat. Had adjusted pretty well to the Premier League. Again, he'd missed chances, but he was a reliable forward for us in terms of occupying centre backs and being a good weapon. We never got to see him play with João Pedro. I think that would have been an interesting matchup. And Delap so far has been just very disappointing. He's had his injuries. Chelsea probably aren't playing to his strengths. But so far, for 35 million, the 22-year-old has not done much. I'm gonna say that Garnacho and Madueke are a kind of a like-for-like replacement. I know they're playing different sides, but I think in terms of the outlay for Garnacho versus what we got for Madueke, I'm going to say, for me, and I think you could probably debate this till the cows come home, I would say they're about similar. Garnacho's only 21. I think he's come in and been quite similar to Noni, actually, in that they're both very direct, get their fullback, and then that end product can be a little bit inconsistent, or very inconsistent. But I'm going to say that actually that's about a like for like for me. Sancho was replaced really in the squad by Jamie Gittins. Gittins, to me, as I said before, I think could be a problem for us. He cost us a significant amount of money, over 50 million. He still looks completely out of his depth, to be honest. He's 20, he's still young, but there's no doubt in my mind that Jadon Sancho gave us more last season than Gittins is this season. And I'm struggling when I watch him to see obvious areas where he's going to suddenly become a brilliant player for Chelsea. All of the inconsistencies that were the reasons that Dortmund were happy enough to let him go, and he wasn't a regular in their team by the end of the season, which is a worry in itself, isn't it, really, when you're buying a player for that amount of money? you want to be playing their best player for 50 million, not someone who's not consistently in their team. Yeah, I don't think that's an upgrade. I think we've downgraded there. And then the other ones, I'll rush through quickly. Esteval, I think, has come in. I think he's an obvious win, really, and will be, and has already provided. So Esteval is a win in the squad. Hato is a problem in the fact that he came in with a huge reputation, very highly rated from Ajax, to finally give us some genuine cover for Cucurella. And he clearly doesn't trust him, because Malagusto comes on at left back yesterday, struggles a bit. And you're kind of looking at that thinking, right, so he's not even trusting the guy who was brought in with a huge reputation to play left back. So that has not helped us. Dario Asugo came in to be the cover for Moise Caicedo. Not his fault in that he has been injured, so effectively has had no value for us at all. And Buonanotte really came in, you could argue, to replace Dewsbury Hall in the squad. And I think we'd all agree that has been a downgrade in terms of a squad improvement. And then you've got Andre Santos, of course, is almost a new body, and I'd say he has been a positive. But if you go overall in terms of those transfers, there is not a significant upgrade, and in some cases we've actually gone backwards. So I don't put that on Maresca, I put that on the sporting directors and the club. And that is a huge area, I think, as Chelsea fans, where we're frustrated, thinking instead of making really smart, big signings to really take us to the next level, it feels like we have just plugged effectively player trading into the model where you're bringing in young players with a potential upside, some of them done for clear potential financial benefit reasons, and that is frustrating. That is very frustrating. And then you add into the mix players like Wes Fofana and Romeo Lavia, who are clearly on their day, top players that could really help Chelsea, but in my mind of effectively squad liabilities, because you can't plan around them. You almost have to get an extra centre midfielder in to cover Lavia, an extra centre back in to cover Fofana. And Lavia at this point, we used to laugh about the fact he's not played a full 90 minutes for Chelsea. At this point, it's actually just depressing and sad and a bit of a waste. And I don't know where his career goes from here, but I don't even remember what he looks like, the guy. So all in all, the Chelsea squad, outside of a good 12 or 13 players, I think is really lacking, and we have not improved significantly enough, which is, I think, a reason why we are where we are. Let's finish on Maresca. There is a clear lack of love from the fans. I know he got some support from the away fans recently, but generally the feeling you get about him at the bridge and generally just speaking to fans, I think, and I'm sure a lot of listening now, is we're a bit meh about him. I think Joe absolutely nailed it in the last pod with his kind of comparison with when great Chelsea managers of the past have left, like Mourinho and Hullet, and you felt like a real punch to the stomach. Or someone like, Frank, where he had that. He was similar to Maresca in that he was a young manager, a little bit unproven, had come in from the Championship, but he had all of that love built up with Chelsea fans that gave him a little bit more, or he had a lot more credit in the bank, didn't he? And the other thing about him is, I think where it's hard with Maresca is the lack of the willingness to sort of be a bit pragmatic and make changes in the way that we play. Our best performances this season have been games like Barcelona and Arsenal, where we've sort of thrown the game plan out the window of this constant possession ball and actually have tried to get in behind and do things differently. That's what Chelsea fans love to see, that pragmatism. When he's stubborn and we play in this very rigid possession way, it's not fun to watch at often. I say at times, it often isn't fun to watch, which I think we found hard. So having the lack of consistency alongside a style of football that we don't particularly enjoy, I think is one of the reasons that Chelsea fans have lost faith with him, or are losing faith, I think. And he's shown he can be absolutely brilliant in one-off games, Maresca. Really, really good. He's gone up against some of the best managers in the world and tactically outthought them. I think he will have a very good career as a manager, but the lack of consistency in the Premier League games and being able to I mean, we're not even consistent within matches, are we? You know, the last two have said that better than ever, because Newcastle was a game of two halves, and really Villa was as well. We can't seem to string together a run of performances, and surely that has to be down to Maresca and what he's doing with that squad. So, yeah, I'm not going to be over the top and say he's got to go. Clearly, it will be reviewed in the summer unless it goes very badly. Unless we get on a really bad run, they'll leave it to the summer and then they'll review and we'll see where we are then. We finished the season really well last year. If we do similar again, get Champions League places, win a trophy, then I'm sure he'll be fine. But if we don't, I think he'll go. And then the question again becomes, who do you replace him with? And answers on a postcard. I'd love to hear from you if you have a manager in mind that you think would come in and really improve this Chelsea squad and could really help us take us to the next level. I think that conversation will be ongoing. It's certainly something we talk about in the pod if the form continues to be as it currently is. So yeah, a little bit of a downer today. I apologise for that. We'll be back after the Bournemouth game. Hopefully we fix what has been a little bit of a frustrating run, get a good win, and then we can start to feel more positive again. But yeah, today is not the day. And as we always say, I have to believe it, every little thing, it's going to be all right. See you next time.
Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.